All right, so here it is, Monday morning, almost 7 o'clock. It is Labor Day. Dragon Con is going on in Atlanta, which I'm not going to because I have to work. Honestly, though, like Dragon Con's just gotten so crowded lately, and I'm not a person who enjoys crowds. So, I would like to go back one day, but maybe it's just not for me anymore. I don't know. It's just maybe gotten too big. Maybe I should go to a smaller convention. I don't know. What do you think? Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get started on these four superpowers figures I got to open. And once we get done with that, we got Darkseid from the DC multiverse. That's one of them big figures. I forget what they call these mega figures or ultra figures. I don't know. I forget what he calls them. But anyway, we're gonna start with Guy Gardner, which was just completely random. I just had the stack over here at the end of my couch and wasn't even sure which one I had on top. Just pulled the one off the top, and here he is, Guy Gardner. So we can see there's a nice piece of artwork here, and if I don't know who the artist is who did this one, but my suspicion is that it's Mike Zeck. And I've mentioned Mike Zeck before. He's a comic book artist that I enjoy his stuff a lot. He did a lot of G.I. Joe covers in the 1980s. He did Spider Man, one of my favorite Spider Man storylines in Kraven's Last Hunt. He's done a lot of covers and some good interior stuff. He did the original Secret Wars and did Captain America for a long time. He's my favorite Captain America artist. Did a lot of GI Joe covers, not a lot of interiors on GI Joe, but I suspect that's Mike Zeck that drew this picture, and it is very much in the style of Joe Staton, who would have been the artist that would have been on Green Lantern at this time, and I think a good bit responsible for the popularity of this character at that time. The costume, I believe, was designed by Howard Chaykin, another artist that I like. He did a lot of cool stuff over the years. It's worth noting that the Batman custom that I did was based on one of his comics, Dark Allegiances. So that's where that came from. Here's the back of it. Man, we got a lot of figures in this cross-sell artwork now, don't we? And you notice that much like with Nightwing, in lieu of putting the character's name up there, they just have his symbol, which is weird to me because like it seems like they could have picked a Green Lantern logo, one that was actually like the logo for the comic books. There have been several, and still not used the same one that John Stewart used or the same one that Hal Jordan used. But no, they just have a Green Lantern emblem up there. So here's what the bio says, and here's what the bio looks like. And you can see it's in 3 different languages. Hot-headed, unruly, and prone to breaking the rules, Guy Gardner isn't always the most likable hero, but he's proven time and again to be a worthy Green Lantern. This tells us almost nothing about this character. It is a pathetic bio. It's like there really should have been a lot more here. I really wish they'd just switch out the plates and print these in different languages on different cards rather than just printing all the languages on all the cards, and then we could get a full bio in any of these languages, and that would be nice. But yeah, Guy Gardner was introduced in the later part of the 1960s, and the original storyline for him was he was basically a guy who he was a fellow who when the power ring of Abin Sur was looking for another wielder when Abin was dying. It basically went out and searched for somebody with absolutely no fear, and that wound up being our guy Hal Jordan. But it turned out there was one other person that also had no fear, and it's just that he was a little bit further away. So it wound up going to Hal Jordan, but it could just as easily gone to Guy Gardner. Now the cover showed Guy Gardner standing over a defeated Hal Jordan, saying that he was going to be taking Hal's place. But the story inside, it just kind of tells what would have happened if Guy had to become Green Lantern instead of Hal, and he winds up dying, and Hal winds up becoming Green Lantern anyway. But it asks at the end, would you like to see more of Guy Green Lantern Gardner? And I guess the reception was maybe a little lukewarm because they wound up replacing him not long after with John Stewart as being the alternate Green Lantern. Like whenever Hal was incapacitated, that uh, uh, John Stewart would be the guy who would step up and be the replacement Green Lantern, the substitute Green Lantern. And Guy was put into a coma for a long time, and when he came out of it, he was apparently had brain damage, and it affected his personality and made him a little bit more of a rough around the edges kind of character, a little bit more of a jerk, put it that way. But but yeah, so I think what happened is when they brought Guy Gardner back, they were probably more interested in doing the character that was on the cover of said issue than the rather bland character that was in the interiors. And when they brought him back for good in the 80s, that was when Howard Chaykin designed this costume. And you can see that if you're familiar with some of the other characters Chaykin has created, it does have very much of a Howard Chaykin sort of feel to it. If you compare this guy to uh, Dominic Fortune, for example, this is basically kind of a palette swapped version of Dominic Fortune's costume almost. Like if you imagine that the vest, gloves, and boots were tan instead of green, and instead of the Green Lantern emblem on there, it had like a little heart over the where the heart would be, almost like a fencing kind of thing. That's basically Dominic Fortune's costume. And of course, if you're familiar with his version of the Scorpion at Atlas Comics, it was again kind of like that pulp adventurer sort of thing where he's wearing a bomber jacket with a high collar. And of course, Reuben Flag, an American flag, basically like a red, white, and blue version of this. It's a look he likes to go back to, is what I'm saying. Nothing wrong with that. It's a good look. So I can see it works for him when he designs these characters. But you can tell that Chaykin had an affection for that sort of pulp adventurer sort of thing. And that does lend into Guy Gardner a little bit. But I think it kind of informs it also with, kind of a toughness I think that they wanted this character to have. So you can see that he's got like lots of buckles and studs and things like that. And I believe the original design of it had a chain on the belt as well, but eventually that wound up getting dropped. You can see it's not on this version, neither in the artwork or on the figure itself. So the other figures in this assortment are Metamorpho, Booster Gold, the black version of Black Manta. So if you missed out on the blue version of Black Manta, there's a black one now, like an actual black one, not the blue version. It's this one. So make sure you get that if you missed out on Black Manta before. I know he's a very hard to find figure right now. But the black version should be a little bit easier. Booster Gold, Metamorpho, Black Manta, and then the Fleischer cartoon version of Superman, and what allegedly is a Dark Knight Returns version of Batman. Those both seem to be fairly short-packed, and I haven't seen them anywhere. Although I had heard reports of them showing up at GameStop and Walmart. Although I haven't seen this way at Walmart at all yet. I have seen them at GameStop. In fact, I got them at GameStop. I did pre-order all these on Amazon, but they kept pushing back the date, and it just really pissed me off. So I wound up canceling most of those Amazon orders. The only one they didn't wind up pushing back the date on, like a ridiculous amount, was Metamorpho. So I didn't wind up getting Metamorpho from Amazon. Anyway, let's go ahead and open this guy up, since I've prattled on for like 10 minutes already. I do want to go to sleep eventually, since I work nights. So got the bubble off fairly easily. And you can see one thing that irritates me about this figure is he does not come with any accessories whatsoever. And as I said before, if you're going to have a Green Lantern figure come with any accessory, you want to have him come with a power battery. Now, fortunately, no rubber tabs, no rubber bands, just came right out. Love it. All right. Now, fortunately, since they did have the Jon Stewart figure marked down at several of my local WalMarts, one of which I was able to get as cheap as like $1. Most of them were like $4, $3, $2, but one I was able to get for $1. So that was nice. So I've got lots of extra power batteries. So we can go ahead and give him power battery. He does not come with it, so don't be thinking he comes with it. But doesn't he look good holding it? Oh yeah. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the articulation. So Guy Gardner's head, in theory, should rotate all the way around, but he's got this really high collar, and then his shin bumps into it, so it doesn't quite go all the way around, but it does rotate kind of like, I guess, like 180 degrees. So you can get like that's about as good of a range of motion as a person's head has in real life. So I can't complain about that too much. And then of course the arms rotate all the way around, and the legs kick up about 90 degrees and also kick back about 90 degrees. Although this one does seem a little gummy, so I'm being a little ginger with him. Might want to hit that with a hairdryer later. And then his knees bend about 90 degrees, and that's it. That's all the articulation he gets. Remember, superpowers are based on old 1980s action figures. And in the 1980s, most action figures were 5 points of articulation. Now, superpowers did have the extra articulation at the knees, which meant most superpowers figures, not all of them, but most of them had 7 points of articulation, which was really nice. I really liked that we had that extra knee articulation on a superpowers. By the way, here we go with one of the actual original vintage 1980s superpowers figures. So we can see him next to Hal Jordan from that line. And it looks like they based Guy's sculpt somewhat off of the Hal Jordan figure. Like he's got like pretty much the same physique, and you can see that his hands are basically in the same positions with the ring slinging hand and the lantern holding hand, even though he doesn't actually come with a lantern. Speaking of which, here is Mcfarlane's version of Hal Jordan, and you can see he's got that kind of more muted green color. That I don't really like this green color as much as the brighter green color that the original Green Lantern comes with. So I wish they had have made him a little more in that shade, but this is apparently just going to be McFarlane's Green Lantern shade going forward. Now, if you look at the original McFarlane Green Lantern, which was Jon Stewart, you can see that he has much more in that 80s superpower style of coloring. So I've got to imagine if they do a Bronze Age Jon Stewart at some point, he'll probably be colored like this, which is disappointing. And since he's like one of the earlier figures, he's a little bit taller than either Guy or Hal, who both seem to be about the same height, give or take. I think Hal's just a little bit taller. No, maybe Guy's a little taller. They're about the same height, though, give or take. So I mentioned the green color, which I don't quite like as well as the vintage superpowers. He does have the ring sculpted into his hand, but it's just kind of like a flat disc. If you look at the original superpowers Green Lantern, there is a little bit more of like the detail to it of like the lantern design, but of course, since it's like, so small, and it's this 1980s kind of molding, it's not quite as sharp as a modern day figure would be. But this is a modern day figure, and it's not anywhere near as sharp, so that's kind of funny. Oh, and one more figure we can compare him to that I have over here. I have the yellow one around somewhere, but I know I have the blue Sinestro. And this would have been the one he would have fought in the 80s anyway. So there he is next to the arch nemesis of the Green Lantern Corps. Kilowog's over on the other side of the room right now, so no Kilowog today, unfortunately. But I'll try to get a pic of all four of our Green Lanterns together. Do I have the yellow Sinestro? Yeah, he's over here. So we can see him next to the yellow Sinestro as well. Now, like I said before, my preference is for the blue version of Sinestro because I'm old school. But I do think the yellow version is really cool. And for the people who prefer the yellow version, yeah, I will agree with you that it does make a little more sense in hindsight. They probably should have given him a yellow costume to begin with. But remember, he didn't even have his ring in the first appearance, so they kind of were figuring that out as they went along. So, but yeah, there he is against the Sinestro Corps version of Sinestro. Now, something I wish I had thought of earlier is like I could have brought Batman and Blue Beetle and Doctor Fate and the Martian Manhunter over here, so we can see him next to some JLI guys. But then it occurs to me that I still need to open Booster Gold. Looks like he's on the bottom of my random stack of figures, so he will be the fourth that I will open. So the next one will be Black Manta, and we'll have a look at that. And then Metamorpho. And then we'll finally move on to Booster Gold. And I tell you what, when I open up Booster Gold, then I will go ahead and have all four of these guys, or all of these JLI guys together, and we'll see what they all look like. That's not the whole team. Obviously, they haven't made Captain Atom or uh, Fire and Ice or Black Canary yet. And I gotta imagine when they make Black Canary, they'll probably make her in the original Black Canary costume, not in the '80s costume. But I like the original costume better anyway, so I'd probably rather display her with my Justice League. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I think most people agree with me. Although, like, it would be nice to have like an accurate version, but they're probably not going to make more than one Black Canary. And if they do make a Black Canary and only one Black Canary, I want her in the original costume. I'm just saying. Like, I'll be disappointed if it's that '80s costume. That's all I get. So that's pretty much it for this time. This is probably the longest superpowers review I've ever done. But if you enjoyed it and you want to make sure you catch the rest, make sure you like and subscribe. Hit the little bell if you want to be notified anytime I go live. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this figure and Guy Gardner in general. So I'll be back tomorrow with Black Manta, then Metamorpho, then Booster Gold, and then at the end of the week, I'll be opening up Dark Side. So that's it for now. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.